Hello everyone, welcome back. Trevor here once again with a brand new video. It's been a bit of a layoff, and I did promise on Twitter that I would get this video out a little bit earlier, but my apologies, I did get a little bit busy with school. However, here we are. I do have the video ready. I do have everything ready for you guys, and it will be interesting and insightful and a bit more analytical than my other videos in the past, so I hope you really do enjoy it. And so let's just go on right ahead. And what today I'm going to be talking about is, well, you see, I have a few friends that are big fans of Apple, and they often will watch the Apple special events. When they happen, they'll stream them live, and one thing that I've heard from them over the few years is this potential myth, potential urban legend, that Apple stock performs worse during these events than it does normally. And so this kind of intrigued me a little bit. Well, first of all, as I mentioned in my previous video with my friend Justin, I am an Apple shareholder. And so, knowing this, I thought this would be some interesting stuff to know, some maybe useful stuff to know, to see if I can actually find a pattern and identify a pattern of Apple stock either underperforming, as they say, doing the same as would be more or less expected, or even overperforming. And so I embarked on this task, and that's exactly what I'm going to be presenting today. So if that sounds interesting for you guys, and if you would like to, I would ask you very kindly to absolutely destroy that like button. The more you destroy it, the better it is for me, and the better it is for you, because I can promise you this: there is no more satisfying feel than pressing that like button. So anyways, let's just jump right into it. Right, so first of all, let me just set the scene a little bit and add some context for you guys. And so what I'm going to be analyzing today is the data for Apple stock between January 1st, 2010 and October 13th, 2020. And so interestingly enough, this is going to be the day after the October special event in 2020. I didn't do it up to the November special event for Apple because I had done this analysis beforehand. But in any case, this should tell the tale without that extra special event. And so what exactly I'm analyzing here is I'm going to be analyzing the performance for Apple stock normally, using every trading day throughout this period, and then I'm going to be comparing and contrasting that with the performance of Apple events, which happen usually at a minimum of twice per year, and sometimes 3 or 4, and this year it happened more so on the high end, but there are some years in that span that only had 2 special events. And I'm also going to add an extra dimension, is I'm going to analyze specifically the WWDC special event, because this is a little bit of a little bit different than their other special events, because it focuses primarily on software and it doesn't announce new hardware. And so when I was analyzing this originally, I wasn't planning on separating WWDC and just looking at that uniquely, but I did notice an interesting trend, and so I wanted to analyze it a bit more, and so I did that. And I do think the WWDC results are the most interesting, and we will get to that later. But anyways, let's start off with the Apple results normally. Alright, and so just before I start the normal Apple results, I'd also like to ask that you guys can absolutely do this analysis yourselves. I took all my stock price data from Yahoo Finance, which I will show on screen right here, how you can easily download that same data. And then I just input the data into Excel, and I used a couple of Excel plugins and built-in Excel features. Notably, I used the Excel Data Analysis Tool Pack when looking for the basic statistics, and then I also used some Excel graphs and charts to give a good a good image of what exactly the performance for Apple stock was. And so on that note, for Apple stock in general, and I just have the results here, we can see that Apple had a median performance of a 0.06% gain for every day, and they had a standard deviation of 1.35%, and the largest single day gain was 8.7%, and the largest loss was 7.26%. And building on that, we can see that Apple had 1,413 days where they recorded a gain, as compared to 1,301 days where they recorded a loss. And so in total, this means that 52.06% of days had a gain, which is a pretty good record. And you may say, well, that's barely over 50%. But we are talking about over the course of getting really, really close to 10 years. And so having 52% of days record a gain is a really good track record, and if you track this with the Apple stock performance over this same time frame, it does speak wonders about Apple stock in general. And if we also look at the histogram of distribution for daily performance, we can see that Apple stock performance is normally distributed throughout these 10 years, which is to be expected. So now if we compare to special events, and this is including all special events, so this does include their WWDC events as well, we can see that Apple had a median performance during these days of minus 0.85%, a standard deviation of 1.41%, the largest gain being 2.14%, and the largest loss being minus 3.33%. So right off the bat here, we can see that during these special events, there definitely is a lower track record of performance by comparison to normal days, in the sense that right off the bat, we can see that median performance is in the negatives, whereas the median performance for the normal days was a positive number. And also, we can see that the largest gain is smaller than the largest loss, which is the opposite of during the normal period. Now, in the big picture, maybe that doesn't matter as much, but it is a small indication of the overall track record of Apple stock during special events. And so, if we look at the table for the number of days where it recorded a gain and the number of days where it recorded a loss during the special events, we can see that there was a total of 11 days during special events where Apple stock recorded a gain, and 26 days where it recorded a loss. Now this is a pretty large slant towards losses, with more than double the amount of losses compared to gains, and only 29.73% of special events recorded a gain. Now that is not an encouraging signal. And if we look at the histogram of special event performance, we can see that it's kind of all over the place. It is not normally distributed as the normal results are. Now that may be a result of and it actually is probably a result of the overall low number of days where there is a special event, and so the small sample size would make it a little bit more difficult for the results to become normally distributed. Now, it is unclear whether or not it would ever become normally distributed with a larger sample size, but I digress. The histogram doesn't really tell us much. But the rest of the statistics do tell us that, on the surface at least, special events do not fare well for Apple stock as compared to normal. Now, it should also be noted that I did not take into account the qualitative factors of each event. And so I didn't say, oh, well, at this event, there was a new iPhone announced, there was a new iPad, new Mac, new blah, blah, blah. I was simply trying to get a look at special events in general. And so perhaps if I were to do a follow-up, or if I wanted to maybe if one of you guys wanted to do an analysis, perhaps you could track that as well. And so this is purely a quantitative analysis that I wanted to keep it to, and as we know, every event is slightly different, but I do think that looking at the events in general does give us an overall picture, because yes, every event has new products and different products, but if there's a general trend, we can usually interpret that it is the special events in general that result in the lower performance for Apple stock. And so moving on from special events in general, I just want to have a little quick spotlight on WWDC events. And for those who don't know, WWDC stands for Worldwide Developer Conference. And this, as I mentioned previously, is where Apple focuses mostly on its software, which differs from the normal special events where they focus on their new hardware releases. And one thing that I kind of noticed and I want to look more into is, as I was analyzing the special event results, I kind of noticed, hey, these WWDC events are responsible for a lot of the losses for these special events in general. And so I decided to analyze these specifically. And here's what I got. So just going over the summary statistics, we can see that WWDC had a median performance of minus 1.31%, a standard deviation of 1.42%, the largest gain being 2.14%, and the largest loss being minus 2.85%. So this kind of exacerbates the trend that was present during these special events, in which Apple stock performs noticeably worse during these events than how it does normally. And so if you look at these results, you would surely come to the conclusion that, hey, these WWDC events are not too great for Apple stock. Maybe I should wait until these events to buy up the stock. Maybe I should buy puts before these events. Maybe I should short the stock right before. Maybe I can make a little bit of money. And that's where I was thinking too. But when I started to look into it more, I saw an interesting trend. And but before I get to that, let me just go over the table of gains and losses. And this kind of shows you what I'm talking about the poor performance of WWDC. So in total, there were 11 days during this 10-year period where there was a WWDC event. And there were only 2 of those days that had gains, while the other 9 reported losses, which means that only 18.18% of WWDCs had a gain for Apple stock, which is abysmal. That is not something you want to see. And this just reinforced what I thought, well, WWDC, that's just not a good time for Apple stock. But I decided to do a scatter chart for WWDC performance. And for those who don't know what a scatter chart is, it's a chart where each data point is plotted on a graph, and you can put a trend line to kind of see, okay, what is the relationship across time for Apple stock performance in WWDC. And when I did that, I found something very interesting. You see, the biggest losses for Apple stock during WWDCs happened early in the decade. And as you went progressively through the years, the performances got better and better. Now, mind you, it started off from such a low point that it didn't actually reach gain level territory until later on, until the last few years. But we can even see that this year in 2020, this was the year where it posted its largest gain. And so that would give me pause before saying, oh, well, during WWDC, Apple stock is going to do poorly, it's going to do worse, and, you know, maybe you can make a quick buck over selling or overbuying puts and short selling the stock. Because if this scatter chart is any indication, you're going to end up being wrong, and it's only going to end up improving its performance, and it's probably going to report a gain. And, you know, we'll have to wait until next year and the year after that and to see if that relationship holds true, because at the end of the day, 11 instances is still a really small sample size, so I cannot give any strong conclusion to that. But I think this relates back to the whole story that, you know, this is an interesting result for Apple stock, and it kind of shows that over time, and over this decade especially, Apple stock has been able to reinforce its position as a top player in not only technology, but in all sectors, and leading the stock market as a whole in becoming its largest, the largest company. And so that may be why investors are more excited, more optimistic during these events over time. So in conclusion, special events as a whole do not offer a particularly optimistic, and in fact it offers a pessimistic view of Apple stock during special events, because there is a clear negative relationship between the two. However, what the interesting part of this analysis reveals is that WWDC, the software event, actually reveals an upward positive trend for Apple stock performance during these events. So that is what I found to be the most interesting. And to relate it back to what my friends were saying about the sort of, well, I guess we're playing Mythbusters here, was or is Apple stock a stock that performs worse during their events? And the answer is yes, but that may not always be the case. So, myth, kind of true. So anyways, guys, I thought this was an interesting video to make and to analyze, and if you'd like more analytical content like this, where I do some more Excel data analysis or something of the like, if you find some other interesting subjects, then maybe you're like, hey, you know, I've never seen this done before, maybe I'd like to see it like this one was, then I would be absolutely glad to do that for you guys. So anyways, if you like this video, don't forget to destroy that like button. That's a second reminder, so you should have done it by now. And don't forget to absolutely just caress that subscribe button. Just be gentle. And if you want, you can have a little fun ringing that notification bell, because who doesn't like ringing a bell? Huh? I do. You do. Come on. Might as well. And it has the added bonus of you will be notified every single time I upload a video, which I'm sure at this point you cannot wait for the next one, and neither can I. So anyways, guys, thank you one last time, and don't be afraid to check out any of my previous videos, and have a good day.